This mansion in St. Louis is known as one of the most haunted places in the world. Originally home to one of the most powerful and influential families of the city, the downfall of their celebrity status can only be described as a curse of death that continued to strike the family in this spot. This is the Lemp family mansion. First, let me tell you how the Lemp family created a massively successful beer empire at the same time that Anheuser-Busch got its start in St. Louis. The patriarch of the family, Adam Lemp, created a grocery store in 1836, located where the Dome at America Center is downtown, but people really only came to buy his homemade beer. So he opened the Lemp Western Brewery, located right around where the south leg of the Gateway Arch is today. The beer quickly became a citywide favorite, and he stored his vast supply of beer in the caves of St. Louis, so it would stay cold. The Lemps created an incredibly popular beer called Falstaff, and they are often credited with being the first national coast-to-coast distributed beer. This is because they were the first to use refrigerated train cars. If you're my age, there's a good chance your grandparents drink a lot of Falstaff beer. The son of Adam, William Lemp, took over and built the iconic South City brewery we know today. This time, the brewery was built directly on top of the caves that they stored the beer in, and he continued to make the Lemp Brewery one of the most successful and largest breweries in the nation. And William Lemp built this mansion for the family, and they would often walk through the cave tunnels every morning to go to work. Somewhere during this time, the curse of the Lemps began. Frederick, one of William's sons, started to come down with a lot of health problems, and then he died of heart failure in 1901. This devastated William, and it was a huge blow to his mental health as he started to shut himself out from the public eye. Then soon after, his best friend, Frederick Pabst, the namesake of Pabst Brewery, also died. The losses were too much for William to take, and he committed suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and he left no suicide note. His son, William Jr., also known as Billy, took over the brewery, and he took that huge fortune from his inheritance and started partying it up. He started spending tons of money. He would throw lavish parties with prostitutes, and everybody would want to come because there was an endless supply of free beer. And a potentially huge scandal occurred when he had a kid outside of his marriage, and the boy was born with Down syndrome. Not wanting to get the word out about it and preventing embarrassment from the family, he hid the boy away from the world, and he grew up locked away in the attic of the mansion. The public called him the monkey-faced boy. There is no documentation to prove the boy existed, which I'm sure is what the Lemps wanted, but historians have interviewed many servants that worked in the mansion, and they did confirm he existed. Eventually, Billy was engulfed in scandal, as the St. Louis News extensively covered the proceedings of his messy divorce with his wife. The public was exposed to his hedonistic lifestyle, and he nearly ended up with custody of his kids due to a photograph of his wife smoking a cigarette surfacing. More bad news from the Lemps started in the 1920s when the prohibition from alcohol in the United States started. It completely killed the Lemp Brewery. They were forced to sell the trademark for Falstaff beer to the Griesdick Brewing Company, and they sold the brewery campus to the International Shoe Company. Surprisingly, during the Prohibition, Anheuser-Busch survived and the Lemp Brewery did not. During the downfall of the brewery, Billy's sister, named Elsa, also known as the wealthiest heiress in St. Louis, committed suicide while in her bed. This was also from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, just like her father, and she left no suicide note. Caveat here, people say it's actually possible her husband killed her and framed it as a suicide. And with no more brewery, Billy suffered heavily with depression just like his father did. And 2 years later, Billy followed his father and his sister and committed suicide while in the office in the mansion. And again, no suicide note. All the family members were buried in this beautiful family tomb in Bellefontaine Cemetery. But we're not done yet. The Lemp family name came back into the public eye after the Prohibition in 1939. This is when Billy's son, William Lemp III, acquired and renamed the Central Breweries in East St. Louis as the Lemp Brewing Company. And it was short-lived, just like William III, who died suddenly of a heart attack at age 42. Then the brewery was bought in 1945. Then we get to Charles Lemp, the third son of William Lemp Sr., and the last to live at the mansion. He never got married, and he lived with Billy's illegitimate son, the monkey-faced boy, who died in his 30s. Charles never got into brewing, but he was known for financial business and politics. But the curse struck again, when after several decades removed from the suicides of his brother, father, and sister, Charles eventually shot himself in 1949. And I originally didn't want to include this part since it angered me, but he also killed his dog immediately beforehand. What a monster. Charles was different from his family, though. He broke tradition. That being, he was the first to leave a suicide note. It read, "In case I'm found dead, blame nobody but me." The Lemp family line finally ended with Edwin, who did not have a tragic ending. But upon his death, he ordered his servants to burn all the priceless family documents and artifacts, which are now lost to history. But today, the mansion functions as a restaurant and inn, and you can do events like going on a haunted tour or a murder mystery dinner. And ever since it opened, there are still stories from the staff claiming that they see ghosts appear in the house, and they'll often hear strange, unexplainable noises, and that they see objects move on their own. And most famously, people claim you can still see the monkey-faced boy peek through the attic window. Guests also claim that the ghost of the womanizer William Jr. peeps on them in the bathroom. And even though the last Falstaff beer was made in 2005, the Lemps left their legacy in the city with a beautiful mansion that still acts as a popular tourist attraction. And of course, they left their story of tragedy, further adding to the spooky St. Louis history around Halloween. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. Check back in through the rest of October for more St. Louis Halloween-themed content.